Welcome to Orange Coast Unitarian Universalist Church on Zoom. My name is Eunice Ayton, and I'm your worship associate today. I'm joined by Reverend Sian Wiltshire, our minister, along with Rika Koffer, our intern minister, and we are joined by Reverend Judy, our director of religious education, along with all the youth and children. Beth Severson, our Director of Music Ministries, is leading our music this morning, and we are delighted to have Jen Maybe, Steve Morihiro, Amelia Russo-Neustadt, and Joel and Jolene Ibanez bringing their musical gifts this morning. I would like to invite you to open the chat box, and if you haven't already, say hello this morning. If you prefer not to have it during the service, you can just turn it off. We will let you know if you need to turn it on again. As Unitarian Universalists, we have many different beliefs, but we are one loving community. We are bound together not by a common set of rules or beliefs, but rather a covenant. A covenant is simply a promise that whatever our beliefs, we accept one another and encourage each other in spiritual growth. We affirm that all life has inherent value and that all existence is interconnected. We strive for justice and compassion in our deeds and relationships, and we are committed to creating a welcoming community without regard to the traits that sometimes divide people. I want to extend a special welcome to visitors. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you will find it here. After the service, we will be placing everyone who remains into Zoom breakout rooms for 20 minutes of coffee and conversation. Everyone is welcome to join in, and it's a great way to get to know people in the congregation. Let us light our chalice, the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition. If you have one at home, we can light them together. Let our worship begin with the lighting of our chalice as we say our unison affirmation. We encourage you to say our unison affirmation even in the privacy of your own home, knowing that people all over this county and beyond are saying it with you. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. This we affirm together.
Good morning, everyone. It's Flower Communion Day, so we're going to be singing a lot about flowers. There's so many things we can learn about flowers and nature. This is a wonderful song. I'm joined by my wife on guitar today. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone them from below, someone warm them from below till the rain comes to tumbling down. Pulling weeds and picking stones, we are made of dreams and bones. Feel the need to grow my own, 'cause the time is close at hand. Grain for grain, sun and rain, find my way in nature's chain, to my body and my brain, to the music of the land. Plant your rows straight and long, temper them with prayer and song. Mother Earth will make you strong if you give her love and care. Old crow watching hungrily from his perch in yonder tree. In my garden I'm as free as that feathered thief up there. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row,
Welcome everyone. Welcome to our annual flower communion service. Now, normally this service has a lovely interactive ritual where we share flowers that we've brought to one another, but we can't do that. So we've created other ways to make this interactive. And those for the kids at heart, we sent out via email a flower bingo. I thought this was kind of fun. There are lots of flowers in the service, and you can see if you're a kid or a kid at heart, if you can find all of them on the bingo sheet. We've also asked people to send us ahead of time a video of themselves passing a flower. We have that later in our service, but you're also encouraged, if you would like, to draw or paint or fold, however it is, to hold up a flower later in the service. You'll have an opportunity to share what it is that you've created or brought with you. So let's begin with the traditional words for flower communion that we usually say, and it goes like this. We come in a variety of colors, shapes, and sizes. Some of us grow in bunches, some of us grow alone, some of us are cupped inward, some of us spread ourselves open wide, some of us are old and dried and tougher than we appear. Some of us are still in bud. Some of us grow low to the ground, and some of us stretch toward the sun. Some of us feel like weeds sometimes. Some of us carry seeds sometimes. Some of us are prickly sometimes. Some of us smell. And all of us are beautiful. What a bouquet of people we are. Now, to inspire you this morning, we've got a number of stories. This is a multi-generational service, so we have a number of stories in this service. Let's begin with the story of the Green Man.
Once upon a time, there lived a rich and vain young squire. Servants prepared his favorite foods every day, and his every wish was granted. One of the young man's favorite things to do was to ride through the woods that were part of his kingdom and hunt small animals for sport. He thought the woods and all its creatures belonged to him, and he could do as he pleased with them. The people in the village had a very different idea about the woods. The woods provided a home for all the creatures that lived there: chipmunks, birds, squirrels, rabbits, deer, and wild pigs. They told their children a story about a green man who lived in the woods and cared for the small creatures. They said he even watched out for children in the woods. The villagers faithfully left out food on winter nights for the green man to eat. One autumn day, the squire decided to go on a hunt. He called his servants to saddle up the horses and get on their riding clothes. They were going into his woods. They rode in the woods, trampling nests and dens as they went, sending out dogs ahead to chase the animals out of their homes so that they could easily be hunted. After a time, the squire became separated from the rest of his hunting party. He was looking for them when he came upon a pond, a beautiful, clear, cool pond. How clever of me to have a pond in my woods to refresh myself, he said. The young man began to remove all of his clothes, his shoes, his hat, his jacket, his shirts, his pants, and his socks. He laid his clothes neatly folded by the edge of the pond and jumped into the cool water. He swam back and forth, enjoying himself immensely. While swimming and splashing away, a hand reached out from behind a tree and took his clothes and led his horse away. When the squire got out of the water, he discovered he had nothing left to wear, save a piece of rope. He took the rope and he fastened some leaves to it to make a cover up for himself. When his hunting party came looking for him, he was embarrassed to be seen dressed in nothing but leaves, so he hid. At night, the squire went looking for some shelter, and he stumbled onto a cave. He didn't sleep much that night. It was dark, and he was frightened, and he kept hearing all the night noises. The squire was in a place where wild things grow free and thrive, but he was afraid of it. Let's hear a song about a wildflower that grows in freedom and loves it.
The hills were alive with wildflowers, and I was wild, even wilder than they. At least I could run, they just died in the sun. I refused to just wither in place. Just a wild mountain rose needing freedom to grow. So I ran, fearing not where I'd go. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive. Wildflowers don't care where they grow. And the flowers I knew in the fields where I grew were content to be lost in the crowd. They were common and close, I had no room for growth. I wanted so much to branch out. I uprooted myself from home ground and left, took my dreams and I took to the road. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive. While flowers don't care where they grow. I grew up fast and wild, and I never felt right in a garden so different from me. I just never belonged, I just longed to be gone. So the garden one day set me free. I hitched a ride with the wind, and since he was my friend, I decided let him decide where we'd go. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive. While flowers don't care where they grow. Just a wild rambling rose, again mysteries untold. No regret for the path that I chose. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive. While flowers don't care where they grow. While flowers don't care where they grow.
In the morning, when the daylight came, he saw that he was not alone in the cave. There was a goat there, and a chicken, and a gourd for holding water. Someone had been living in that cave. He found some grass for the goat and feed for the chicken. He discovered some grain that he could eat as well. Over time, the squire settled into life in the cave. He fashioned a whole garment out of leaves. He ate from the hen and drank goat milk from the goat. He covered his hand with mud to prevent stings as he reached into a beehive for the honey to eat. He became acquainted with all the small woodland creatures, and he cared for them. He helped them over the swollen streams when heavy rains fell, making sure that they had food and water, and sheltering them in the cave on chilly nights. One day, he came upon two small children trapped by a wild pig threatening to bite. When he had chased the pig off, they looked at him. There he was, covered head to toe with leaves and mud, with a wild beard and hair. "Are you the green man?" they asked. "I guess I am," said the man, who no longer looked anything like a squire. When winter came, the green man was happy to go into the village to take the food that the villagers left out for him, sharing that with his animal friends. A year passed peacefully until one warm day, a hunting party came into the woods. The green man hid behind a tree to watch. A rich young man, a squire perhaps, became separated from his hunting group and decided to take a swim in a cool, clear pond. He took off his clothes and folded them and left them under a tree. The green man reached out his hand and took the clothes and the horse, leaving behind his garment and some coiled rope. He used a sharp stick to trim his hair and beard, and he rode into town back to his parents' castle. When he arrived, his parents were overjoyed to see him. But there was something different about the squire. After his time in the woods, he no longer wanted to hunt for sport. He had become friend to all the creatures of the wild. And in the winter, he never failed to leave out food for the green man.
My body, water my blood, air my breath and fire my spirit. Earth my body, water my blood, air my breath and fire my spirit. Earth my body, water my blood, air my breath and fire my spirit. Earth my body, water my blood, air my breath and fire my spirit.
Every year, many UU congregations around the country, including ours, tell the story of Norbert Čapek and the Flower Communion. And even though I have heard and even told the story several times now, every year it resonates with me a tiny little bit differently. This year, as we witness nationwide protests in response to ongoing structural racism and white supremacy in this country, what stands out for me is not just this beautiful and meaningful tradition, but also the possibility of deep, transformative spiritual change that this tradition upholds. The Reverend Norbert Čapek's life was one of ongoing spiritual transformation. Raised Catholic, he left the Catholic Church at the age of 18 and became a Baptist minister. Yet his transformation did not stop there. Growing increasingly liberal and increasingly outspoken about it, he had to leave his home. He had to first leave his home for political reason and emigrate to the US with his family. In the US, he then left his Baptist faith tradition, realizing that he just didn't believe what Baptists believe anymore. Instead, he believed in the inherent goodness of all people and in a loving God. For a while, Norbert Čapek did not have a spiritual home. That must have been especially hard since he had just left his homeland too. Sometimes when we change deep inside, it can feel confusing and isolating. It makes us long for a new, a better, more just community. But though he had at times even grappled with his belief in God, he never stopped believing that religion could be a place for community, a place where people of all shapes and sizes, of all beliefs and philosophies, of all colors and creeds could come together and help create a better world. So Norbert Schabek and his family kept searching for a place that would do just that. And so one Sunday, they ended up in the First Unitarian Church of Essex County in New Jersey. They liked what they heard of a loving God. If you wanted to believe in God, you didn't have to. And of a community invested in changing the world for the better. So the next Sunday they came back, and they kept coming back. And that's how Norbert Schabek and his wife, Maya, and their children became Unitarians. Not long after, Norbert even became a Unitarian minister. He had found a place, a community that shared his beliefs and his values. But Norbert Schabek's journey did not end there. He missed his home, and after World War I, he was full of hope for Czechoslovakia, his home country. He envisioned a Czechoslovakia that was inclusive, progressive, and peace-loving, much like his beloved Unitarian Church, a transformed Czechoslovakia. He wanted to share his faith, and the people were ready for him. At many of his services, there was standing room only. Norbert Schabek had found a new community in his old home. And yet, maybe remembering the times when he had felt disoriented and isolated, he wanted to create a ritual, a tradition that would root this community as they grew. And so he came up with the Flower Communion. The first time Norbert held the Flower Communion, it brought the congregation to tears, because for the first time they envisioned a new way of being in the world, peaceful, loving, hopeful, inclusive, and free. For 15 years, Schabek continued this ritual until in 1938 the Nazis invaded Czechoslovakia and the budding new progressive country was thrown into chaos and war. Norbert and his daughter Zora were arrested for their preaching of unity and freedom. Zora was eventually released, but Norbert was considered by the Nazis as too dangerous to the Reich to be allowed to live. And he was sentenced to the Dachau concentration camp, where he was killed along with many others. Until the very end, he stood by his convictions and ideals, even when that meant sacrificing his life. To honor the legacy of her father and his ideals and his sacrifice, Zora, his daughter, who had been with her father on that first Sunday they spent in a Unitarian church, brought the Flower Communion to the US, sharing this ritual with us so that it would become our tradition too. Years later, when Zora was grown, people asked her, "Why did your father choose the flower as the symbol?" And she told them, "Because unlike other religious symbols, no one ever started a war because of a flower."
Oh, give us pleasure in the flowers today, and give us not to think so far away.
So traditions. Traditions are kind of funny things, aren't they? There's a tradition in my family that happens every Thanksgiving. So we stand around the table at Thanksgiving and we hold hands. It come from 22 cousins. There's a whole bunch of us growing up. And we would stand around and we'd all say something that we're grateful for, which is a lovely tradition. About 20 years ago, my cousin Ida, who is a hairdresser, stated when it came to her turn what she was grateful for. She said, "I'm grateful that hair grows." Now, we all kind of burst out laughing, right? It's because it's not something that you think about. But of course, as a hairdresser, she's grateful that hair grows. We burst out laughing and thinking about, yeah, what are those things that we kind of take for granted in our lives that help us? Do we ever think that we're grateful for our dental hygienist? I don't know. Like all of these things. Well, thereafter, every year, when it came to Ida's turn, again, she would say, "I'm grateful that hair grows." And it became this tradition for her, and everybody would look expectantly at her, waiting for that line. Until I noticed that after about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years of this, she started to get a little annoyed. Like, there are other things she's grateful for, and she wanted to be able to express them, but everybody wanted to go and remember that moment, right? Because that's what rituals and traditions do. They're meant to help us remember that moment when we had a little bit of an awakening, or we had that moment of connection, of something that opened us up a little bit more. But ritual loses its meaning when it becomes forced, right? When it no longer meets the times. And poor Ida, now she just sort of looks at everybody, I'm not saying it. Now, Chapik, he created tradition because the traditional communion no longer worked for his people. Communion in many churches, particularly at the time that he was growing up as a Catholic, it was exclusive, right? You had to be a Catholic, or you had to be baptized. You had to believe what everyone in that church was. And he wanted something that was inclusive. So traditions often need to change in order to still have meaning. They need to meet the needs of the day. Traditions can help sustain us, remind us of who we are as a people, call us to our better angels. Traditions like the story of the Green Man, which is a story of the passing down of a tradition of how people become awakened to the natural world, right? Be passed down from generation to generation. But traditions don't always work out that well as the story would have us believe. They can also be used to oppress, forcing people into roles that work for some, but not for all. And that's when traditions need to change. And we Unitarian Universalists, we've changed a lot of our traditions and created new ones. For example, we used to have traditional bread and wine communion until it became oppressive, when it became exclusive, only for people who believed a certain way. And Chapik knew that Jesus in that first communion meant it to be for everyone. It had lost its original sense, the calling together of a community to fight oppression. Chapik rethought communion. He asked himself some fundamental questions about its purpose. If it was meant to call a community together to help them remember who they were and to fight the oppression of their day, what might that look like now in his Czechoslovakia? And that's when he came up with the flower communion. There comes a time in almost every tradition when you start saying, because that's the way we've always done it. It just doesn't work. And if you ever find yourself saying, well, that's the way we've always done it, chances are that's something you really need to look at. When people are being oppressed, denied their dignity and worth, it's no longer working. So we come here to our modern day. As you know, it's all been in the news that policing, for example, has been done a certain way in our country. It's militaristic, it's punitive, and it's racist in its approach. It's no longer working. Or rather, it's no longer working particularly for Black and brown people. If you look like me, it's working just fine. It's time. It's long past time for it to change. And it's not about getting rid of police. I think a lot of people are, they hear the abolishment of the police and they go, what? Oh my goodness. Really what it's about is asking fundamental questions and rethinking about how we do policing. What is policing? How should it be used? And there are organizations like Project Zero that are asking these questions. And I think it's time that we got behind them to ask these fundamental questions. Traditions can and do change, but only if everyone is willing to give up sort of their sacred cows, as it were. It wasn't easy for people to give up the traditional communion because it worked for some. They liked that, even when it oppressed others. It won't be easy for us to change the way we do policing. But when we do decide to shift, when we open our hearts and minds to that new way of doing things, it's amazing. Creativity explodes. New forms are created, new traditions with new meaning, new ways of embracing everyone. Zora Chapek's daughter was asked, why did he use flowers? And he said, because unlike other religious symbols, no one ever started a war because of a flower. No one ever started a war because of a flower. Stop and think about that. Flowers are religious symbols. We just don't really think about that. We take them for granted. Like wildflowers, they just sort of show up everywhere. They show up on a first date or to celebrate an anniversary. They show up at weddings, they show up at funerals, they show up at a protest. They're given as awards for a job well done. Flowers are symbols of the best of us, of that divine spark, that divine love that lives within each of us. And their color, their beauty remind us of this. They're symbols of beauty, hope, and love throughout our lives. Flower communion is still powerful because these symbols are still radical. They call us to our better selves, call us to who we can be, call us to help create a better world. And we get to choose those rituals and traditions in our lives, which we can either choose what causes division, hate, and exclusion, or we can choose unity, love, and inclusiveness. I hope we always choose love. So let us begin our flower communion, our ways of remembering that beauty inside of us. Let's first, by offering up flowers to one another, we have this beautiful video. I'm like putting this on my desktop.
Happy Flower Communion.
Hi, everyone. Have a great day.
Good morning.
Bye.
I can't tell you how much I love that video. I love it. But we don't want to leave anybody out. If you'd like to show us a flower, we're going to take down the slideshow for a brief moment. You can go to gallery view and see what it's beautiful. Oh, everyone, thank you for sharing your flowers, your light, your love, your beauty. You know, there's a traditional blessing of the flowers that Chopik wrote for the service, but I have to admit, the language no longer feels inclusive as I would like it. So I rewrote the blessing in the spirit of the original to meet today's needs. So please join me in blessing all of you, each of you as flowers. Infinite Spirit of life, let us bless these messengers of love. May they remind us to find the beauty amid the ugliness of the world. May they remind us to find hope amid the fear in this world. May they remind us of this beloved community, a precious gift of beauty and hope. And may these messengers of love wake us to the pain of those who are oppressed. And may the life we live speak as the flowers do, of love, of justice, and hope in the world. Amen. Let us sing.
Let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the life I've lived speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the friends I've made speak for me. Let the friends I've made speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, let the friends I've made speak for me. Let the work I've done speak for me. Let the work I've done speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the work I've done speak for me. Let the love I've shared speak for me. Let the love I've shared speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, let the love I've shared speak for me.
Unitarian Universalist congregations are fully self-supporting, meaning that members and friends raise all funds and for the operating budget, ministries, and programs for the church. We are ever grateful for your gifts of time, treasure, and talent. OCUUC amplifies that spirit of generosity by sharing half of the plate we receive with an organization that shares our values. This month, we are supporting our Unitarian Universalist camp, the Benefield Pines, in Angeles Oaks, California. The camp provides children, teens, and adults of all beliefs and identities an environment for centering solitude, fresh air, a welcoming community of peers, art, music, and yoga, and a chance to make lasting friendships in a mountaintop setting. COVID-19 has dealt a severe blow to the camp with resulting cancellations of all spring 2020, June and July, and most likely other summer 2020 camp experiences. Please give generously to help our mountain retreat remain viable and available for generations to come. There are now 3 ways in which you can give online. The first is through our website, www.ocuuc.org. The second through an app called Give. You can download it on the App Store for your smartphone, and once set up, you can use it for your online giving, including your pledge. The third method is by texting 714-942-1131. Simply text to that number and in the message type the amount. As always, thank you for your generosity as the offering is given and received. Please join in singing We Gather Together, a song that puts our intentions into words and express our gratitude for the many gifts we share.
We gather together, we gather as one, for peace, love, and justice for everyone. We care for more gods to show that we can change lives with what we share.
Now is that time in our service. This is a ritual and a tradition we do every week. It's a time when we honor the important events and people in our lives. And you're invited, one and all, whether you are a member, a friend, or a visitor, to join in this ritual of joys and sorrows. And it's simply lighting a candle. In order to begin, I just invite you to simply take a deep breath, to become more fully present here to yourself, to this gathered community. And as you do so, you may become aware of those moments from the last days or hours that you bring here with you, those moments that have struck you really deeply at your core. If you'd like to honor such a profound joy or sorrow, you're invited to do so by lighting a candle. If you'd like to share it with the congregation, you can write it in the chat. Beth will play some music while you type any profound joy or sorrow, and then I'll read them out loud so everyone can hear them. So Sarah Hunter is excited to go to a Black Lives Matter protest today. Be safe, my friend. I'm going to one on Monday. And Sunny Harper is really grateful that her grandson is recovering from COVID-19. And Linda Clough wrote that she's just so joyful to celebrate with her dear husband, Jim's. It's his 83rd birthday. Congratulations and happy birthday. And Reverend Judy and her family are grieving the passing of their cousin Fred Ingham, who died this week from liver cancer. Peggy has expressed her feelings of awe for the worldwide peace demonstrations, truly awe-inspiring. And Jeff is grateful that the world continues to turn and his family is healthy. Amen. Sunny Harper is reaching out because her son is a 30-year-old retired police officer, 30-year retired. Wow, as a police officer. We hold him in our heart too. Barbara Morihiro has expressed a concern and a joy this week that her new granddaughter spent a couple of days in Children's Hospital with an infection, but is now home and is recovering with her very relieved mommy and daddy, and I'm sure grandparents too. Alex Bailey has a candle of sorrow. He learned on Friday that a former supervisor outed him several years ago. Oh, Alex. The joy is that his current supervisor and he have a supportive conversation. Oh, Alex. That's one. Peggy lit a candle of hope that real progress can be made in policing and justice systems from the power of the beautiful voices we were hearing across the world. Amen. Jacques offers up some advice about pepper spray. I'm actually not sure that Moak actually does, I've heard. And Justine Chen, she says, I'm heartened by the change in tone and makeup of recent protests, but I'm also deeply saddened that many still refuse to see what is truly happening in America. Yeah. Tatiana Hauer says she lights a candle for the profound sorrow she feels for the injustice of continuous police brutality and complicity. And Meg comes in with a candle of joy for the celebration of her grandson Rye's 4th birthday on June 4th on Zoom. It looks like they had a wonderful celebration. Maureen has a client of a client's close family members hospitalized with COVID-19, and everyone is getting tested. That must be frightening for the whole family. Ulysses is grateful that we're still together in this pandemic and going through these difficult times together. And Dane, congratulations for Cade Nygaard, who's graduated from high school on Thursday. Congratulations, Cade. And Stacy, a candle of hope for continued health issues, hoping a more aggressive treatment helps. Amen to that. Lots going on in our lives and out there in the world, and let us hold all the joys and celebrations and all the hurts and sadness, both spoken and silent. Let our joys remind us to be thankful, our concerns remind us to hope, and our sorrows remind us to connect. Let all these moments remind us that we are not alone. I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer that's offered by the Reverend Kenny Wiley, who's a Unitarian Universalist minister. He wrote these words. Right now, we as Unitarian Universalists are being called by our ancestors, those who demanded that we help end slavery, that we fight for suffrage, that we join the struggle to end Jim Crow, that we listen to and honor Black power. Lydia Maria Child and William Lloyd Garrison are calling us. Lucy Stone is calling us. Fannie Williams and Frances Ellen Harper are calling us. James Reeb is calling us. Viola Liuzzo is calling us. Right now, we are being called by our ancestors, by our principals, by young Black activists across the country to affirm and promote. You are young and Black and your life matters. You stole something and your life matters. You've been taught to fear you. I've been taught to fear you, and your life matters. The police are releasing your criminal record and your life matters. They're calling you a thug and your life matters. Our ancestors, principals, and fellow human beings are calling on us to promote with affirm, with deeds and words that Black lives matter. Amen.
Let us join together as we extinguish the flame of our chalice and say together, we extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We are a congregation made up of people who all believe differently. And yet, when we gather together, virtually or otherwise, we make up one loving community. We need not think alike to love alike. If you are a guest, a visitor, or someone who hasn't yet been known to us, I invite you to become a part of this beloved community, even if it's just for today. We encourage you to write in the chat your name and where you are from. If you would like to know more about our church, please see our church website for ways you can get involved and sign up for our weekly email called The Blast at blast@ocuuc.org. If you would like to know more about membership, please contact us at membership@ocuuc.org. Our community is enriched by its visitors, guests, and friends, and we hope that they will find a spiritual home here. If anyone has a question about Unitarian Universalism or how to get involved, please contact Reverend Sean at minister@ocuuc.org. She can assist you in connecting to the congregation. We want everyone to feel a part of this beloved community. So please reach out and we will help you get connected. After the benediction, we will have a short period where everyone can wave and say hello. Then, those that remain will be put into Zoom breakout groups for 20 minutes. We invite you to check in and get to know the people in your group and welcome any visitors.
And of course, there are announcements, and you can see all of these different things that are going on in on our calendar, on our website, so definitely want to go there. I want to just make a couple of announcements. One of which is that I mentioned that there's a memorial for George Floyd in Santa Ana outside of the sheriff's office on Monday at 8:30 in the morning. And if you'd like to join me there, you are welcome to do so. If you feel uncomfortable, obviously being in a crowd of people, one suggestion you could do if you like is decorate your car and drive around the block. That's something that I know that Tapestry, I'm doing this with Tapestry Kent, it's the Black Lives Matter and Clue are together doing this joint protest. There's then going to be a caravan going from Santa Ana up to Los Angeles. I won't be joining the caravan, but you are welcome to do so as well if you would like. But if you'd like to join me there at 8:30, you would love to see any wonderful faces behind masks there. So the other thing that I want to mention is that we did right when this hit, we did our pledge drive, right? And I got to tell you, man, it got knocked out of the ballpark. This pledge drive was an incredible, wonderful success. We have 99 pledges totaling over $212,000. And that number may not mean anything to you, but that's more than a 12% increase over last year. Yes, you heard me right, increase over last year. So thank you all for your generosity. And this church is such an amazing community. I'm just absolutely thrilled. Everybody has done such a great job, and particularly the pledge committee with Sandy Martin and Linda Sperry as co-chairs, and Sarah Hunter, Karen Kennedy, Nancy Lockery, Don Martin, Craig Sperry, and Meg Wilson. Shout out, you guys. Awesome job. So thank you everyone again for all of your generosity on that. So, I love this beloved community. Let us sing together our benediction that we see every week as we also celebrate with our flowers.
Be safe, be well, you mean the world to me. Be safe, be well, you mean the world to me.
This is that time when you can also join us for a virtual coffee hour afterwards, after the service. My friends, my beloved community, I love you all. You're just incredible flowers of light and love in this world. The service is over. Let our service continue.